So the big news that happened yesterday is that Nick Chubb has signed a extension, a 3-year, $36 million extension. So on top of this year, he will be locked up for the next 3 years. I think the reports say he's going to be under contract until he is 29 years old. So if he gets extended after that, he must be like one of the greatest running backs of all time, honestly, because most running backs don't get extended past 29. But for the next 4 years, it's locked up. And this is important because, one, it helps lock up this young core. Now, if you're not able to get something done with Baker Mayfield, or if Baker Mayfield doesn't end up being the guy, whichever one of those narratives you want to run with, then it does become a problem. But right now, what you have is for the next 2 years, you have the main core, right, locked up. You still have Baker Mayfield under control. Now you definitely have Nick Chubb. Now you have Kareem Hunt. Now you have Odell. Now you have Jarvis. You have the entire offensive line outside of Wyatt Teller. You got all of these guys, Austin Hooper and Harrison Bryant, all under control. So this offensive continuity is going to stay the same this year. It's going to be the same next year if the Browns want it to be. Now, they could always release guys, but more than likely it's going to be the same for the next 2 years, which is really good. Now, it's an expensive offense. I think it's one of the most expensive offenses in football. And again, Baker hasn't even signed yet, but I don't think this extension should really change that number, because it's not like Nick Chubb is going to be making that money against this year's cap. It's going to be against years after's cap. So I don't know where that puts the Browns for this year, but nonetheless, it's going to be an expensive offense. We all know that the defense has its thing locked up for a little while outside of the defensive end position, outside of Myles Garrett, right? So most of this team is locked up. Now you're just talking about Denzel Ward getting an extension. Maybe you extend Ronnie Harrison. And then obviously you're going to have to extend Wyatt Teller at some point, I think at the end of this year, because that's when his rookie deal is up. So all in all, contract situation-wise, the Browns are in a good position. Now, what does this mean for Baker Mayfield? As for now, until Baker Mayfield sign, any signing that the Browns are going to do that's a long-term, any extension that the Browns make, it's going to be a question in the air of how does that affect Baker and the ability to keep him. Well, one, I don't think it affects Baker at all. I always felt like there was like a $15 million cap on Nick Chubb, right? You could go up to 15, but if you wanted to go past 15, you couldn't justify keeping him long term. He's at 12 million, which is a great deal for the running back of the caliber that Nick Chubb is. That's less than Alvin Kamara. That's less than Zeke Elliott. That's less than Derrick Henry. That's less than Christian McCaffrey. It is a definitely discounted deal when you look at all the guys that he probably should have got. I thought or assume that the money for Nick Chubb would probably be somewhere around 15 million, but the fact that it's not is very interesting. So there's that. You got a discount on Nick Chubb for the next 3 years, and as the cap goes up, that's going to look like a better and better deal. Again, both sides should be very happy with this deal. Nick Chubb gets a lot of guaranteed money. The Browns get a lower overall cap number for him for a player they feel like is going to be very productive for him. So that's all good. Now with Baker Mayfield, this honestly gives him a little bit more room to negotiate. And honestly, for the Browns, you can argue it's not a great negotiating position to put them in, because one, you're allowing Baker to have another season where he can have a breakout, where he can demand more money, which is fine. The other thing that I'm starting to see here is probably going to become a theme when it comes to Baker's contract negotiations is there's really not going to be anybody that you can dangle in front of Baker and say, hey, if you take a little bit less money, we're going to be able to keep, because you already re-signed Nick Chubb. I thought that was always going to be the bargaining piece for the team was, hey, you take less money, we can guarantee that you're going to keep Nick Chubb here. The fact that they locked him up means, hey, you're going to have Nick Chubb on this team for the next 3 to 4 years regardless, unless the team cuts him, which wouldn't be popular at this point in time. So now if you're Baker, that matters less, right? They're not going to be able to throw these carrots that, let me be honest, A lot of teams put these carrots out there. Oh, if you sign for less money as a quarterback, we'll be able to bring in these guys. Not a lot of teams have a track record of actually following through on that. So it's kind of a false choice that they present. But nonetheless, it is a effective bargaining piece for these teams to have out there. The fact that they took that off the table on themselves, which, hey, they got a good deal for Nick Chubb. It's just probably going to mean that if Baker has a good year this year, you're looking at paying him top 5, top 8 money, right? It's going to jump from about 35 to 40 million, maybe even 45 if he has a really, really good year. Because again, what is there to stop Baker from getting that money? Who is the money? Where is that money going to go? That's not Nick Chubb and that's not Myles Garrett, right? Like at the end of the day, those are the two guys that you'd be willing to take a pay cut to keep on your team. They're locked up for the long-term future. So if you're Baker, now you're just the last piece and you can just fit in there. Now this begs a question. Do the Browns have a hard number, right? A set capped number where they're either going to re-sign Baker Mayfield or not? I'm wondering if that's the case. The only reason I'm wondering this, if you look at all the Browns' other negotiations, it seems like that is how they do business, right? When they did it with John Johnson, it was a similar thing where they had a set amount that they were going to offer. When you look at how they brought in Clowney, they had the set amount. He didn't want it 1 year. The next year he did. When you look at how they negotiate, how they sign players, and usually how they get players kind of under market, that is something that they tend to go to. And it looked like that's another thing that they did here with Nick Chubb. So I'm starting to wonder here, are the Browns setting a hard number for Baker Mayfield? And will that be what's better for this team in the long run? I don't know. But it certainly looks like it's pointing in that direction. But that's the long-term stuff. That's the stuff that we're going to spend literally all offseason next year talking about. The fun part of this is that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are on this team for the next 2 years. I believe, 3 years, actually, because Kareem Hunt got extended the year prior. So you're going to have Chubb and Hunt, if this team wants, for the next couple of years, which is huge. You're going to have Odell and Jarvis for the next couple of years if you want, which is huge. You have all of these guys already under contract, already under control. It definitely opens up that Super Bowl window, I would say, at least another year, right? I was talking about this year and next season. Maybe you can start to add another season to that because you're going to have these guys on the roster, at least have the option to have these guys on the roster, and the cap's going up. So I would say that probably extends your window theoretically. But huge signing, nonetheless, right? Huge signing. You're able to get Nick Chubb under what is acceptable money, and you have to give the front office credit, right? One of the things that I kind of was afraid with their analytic background that they wouldn't do would be go for somebody like JOK. They went for somebody like JOK, who's a linebacker, and even I have my hiccups about getting linebackers early in the draft because unless they turn out to be a Pro Bowl player on day one, they usually aren't worth early draft picks. They got JOK in the second round, which was awesome. Obviously, I really enjoyed that. You guys know JOK was one of my favorite players in the draft. And then this year, right, a lot of people, everybody in the analytics world will tell you not to get Nick Chubb, especially not to extend Nick Chubb because they don't think he can be a receiver of the football and they think he's only useful running the ball. And I actually kind of have to push back on that theory when I think about it because I hear this a lot, right? A lot of the detractors to extending Nick Chubb is that he's not a versatile guy like a Christian McCaffrey. But I would ask this question: what versatile guy that's gotten that big money is still worth it right now? If you look at all the running backs that kind of look like mistakes, or not mistakes, but look like they haven't lived up to their contract since they've been extended, it is not the primary running backs, right? It is all of these multi-purpose guys. It's Zeke Elliott. It's Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara was actually really good last year, but there's still questions about his health. There's Christian McCaffrey, huge questions about his health. You can even talk about somebody who went number 2 in the draft, Saquon Barkley, that's number 2 in the draft that Nick Chubb went into. All of these multi-purpose guys, either they get used so frequently that they end up being injured or having a extensive injury history, so they're not going to be as useful long term, or maybe we're inflating the value of a running back that's able to run, a handful of routes at a higher than normal level, and not valuing that running back's ability to run. And you could point at Le'Veon Bell as another example of one of those multi-purpose guys who people thought it would be a better deal to give money to than just a straight running back. But you look at the running backs that had longevity in this league: Adrian Peterson, not a receiver of the football. So far, Derrick Henry, not a receiver of the football. Frank Gore, 20 years strong, not a receiver of the football. Capable, all of these guys, Nick Chubb included, all capable receivers of the football, but not guys you would tout as these multifunctional, multi-positional slash running backs. And it makes me question, maybe the logic is flawed. Maybe the guy that you should extend as a running back is the guy who can play running back the best. And it doesn't matter how versatile he is when it comes to that value, because a guy who can play running back really well might last longer than a guy who does three other things at a good level, or might be more useful than a guy who can do three other things at a good level instead of a guy who can just run the football at an elite level. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. My thoughts on the whole, should teams extend running backs conversation. Let me know your thoughts down below. How excited, because I know everybody's excited. I'm not going to ask you if you're excited. How excited are you that Nick Chubb got this extension? And what do you think that means for this team's future? Let me know down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Please have a great day and have a good night.